Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hi there. This is Kelly, and you are listening to In Her Voice, and I just want to say thank you for being here today. When I sit down in front of my microphone in my little studio and I think about the people who will be hearing this, I just get this warm and fuzzy feeling inside, and I'm just so filled with gratitude for this space that we share. So thank you for being here. I have a really cool guest on this week. Her name is Hanna Bier, and she's just really, really interesting. Let me read your bio, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about her. Hanna Bier is an energy healer and soulful success coach. She helps ambitious women across the world to heal deeply and create the successful, love-filled, and freedom-based lives they desire. She uses energy clearings, family constellations, and masterful life and business strategy so you can transcend your current challenges and move into a new level of confidence, creating your abundant future with embodied ease. Hanna has worked with hundreds of women, helping them achieve new levels of success in their love-based businesses, fall in love with the perfect mate for them, as well as grow lighter and brighter and live more abundantly than ever before. She is the host of the Mystics on a Mission show, and she lives in London. And what we're really talking about today is healing family relationships. And so we really go deep, take a deep dive into this idea of family constellations. And I just want to tell you, you guys know me and you know that I embrace the woo. There is a lot of woo here. And even I have to admit, a little bit skeptical going into this interview, but I've never let that hold me back before. And she took me through a little process at the end of the episode that was amazing and so fascinating to me and so eye-opening and so just nurturing to my soul. And I believe that you could do that as well. The process allows you to do it with me, sort of as we can do it together. And so I really, if you lean towards skepticism, and there's nothing wrong with that, I encourage you to hold on to the end here because I think that you will be pleasantly surprised. So let's get right into the interview with Hanna. Hanna Bier, welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so excited to welcome you here today.
Thanks so much for having me, Kelly. I'm really excited too.
Fantastic. So we are diving into a deep and juicy topic today, and it's something that I have seen come up a lot with myself, with the clients that I work with the lady friends that I have, and that is how family issues can really hold us back if we don't take the time to heal them. So I thought we could just start with sort of creating clarity around what we mean when we say family issues. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about this kind of work and what you mean when we're talking about healing family issues?
Yes. So I'm a family constellation therapist. Family constellation therapy is basically a healing modality that looks at your family system and identifies any major destructive patterns, any major traumas that happen in your family system. And it's really about resolving those so that everything can get back into a healthy state. So if you think about a wolf pack, for example, those are pretty well researched. So we kind of have an idea of what the hierarchy within a wolf pack needs to look like, how wolves tend to interact with each other, and basically how the individuals interact in order for the pack to be really strong, for every single individual to know their role, to know their place, to know what's expected of them, so the entire pack can thrive. Something similar exists with humans. So biologists don't just research animals, they also research the animal that's called human. So within human family systems, a similar thing exists. There's a specific hierarchy that biologists have found and psychologists have found that causes a family to thrive in the best way. In the same way, there are certain norms and ways of interacting with each other that go beyond the culture someone is born into that help individuals within a family system work in the most effective way. So family constellation therapy has been developed with a couple different modalities in mind. So it's very strongly affected by biology, which really looks at how do humans as animals behave and interact with each other. Like, what are those unwritten, invisible laws that govern human families? The other thing is that it's very strongly influenced by psychology, which asks the question, how do humans need to interact so every single individual within a family system can really thrive, can live a really good life, can have a happy, healthy love life, happy, healthy finances, so children can thrive and everybody's able to really express themselves in the most optimal way. And it's also very strongly influenced by a type of science that's called epigenetics, which really looks at how trauma and certain patterns are being passed down from generation to generation and affect us. So family constellation therapy, just in a nutshell, it looks at your family system, and we talk about how to bring your family system back into a natural state where every single person can live optimally and really thrive.
Okay, so many questions. Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. That was such a good explanation. So I'm going to start with, for me, what seems like the most pressing, and that is, I'm just one person in my family. So how can me alone doing this work help and heal those patterns?
That's such a good question. So in family constellation therapy, we work within the morphic field of your family system. So I need to do some explaining so you guys can kind of follow what I mean. So the morphic field is an electromagnetic field that imposes order upon the individuals of a group. So a wolf pack has a morphic field around it that biologists research. And this morphic field basically stores all of the norms and accepted behaviors within that group of wolves. And so the same is true for humans. And so a human family is also held together in a way by a morphic field, which is an electromagnetic field that can be measured, it can be researched, and it's really cool. So it might sound a little bit magical if you've never heard of this. So you can basically think of it as this net or this network, this energetic grid that connects family members to one another. And this is where it gets really cool and interesting. So if you're a science geek like me, like this is where it gets so cool. So the individuals that are connected to the family system receive information about other members without even having to be in the same room. So I'm going to give you kind of an example. So if a certain bird falls out of its nest and grows up with a different kind of a bird family, basically gets adopted, it still behaves like its biological bird family. So it's like if a sterling grows up with, say, a bunch of chickens, the sterling will always behave as a sterling. It will know, this is where my bird knowledge kind of comes to an end. But, if it had to migrate, biologically speaking, it would migrate. It would know what to eat. It would know how to behave. It would completely stay in line with its family of origin. And that's because it's connected to the morphic field of its family system. And that morphic field holds all the information the sterling baby bird needs in order to survive as a member of its family. So even if we take a member of someone's family out of that family in a physical way, so if they move away or if they go to jail or if somebody's really far away from their family, they still unconsciously follow them. Because this is simply how we're biologically wired. We are connected through the morphic field because without this connection, we wouldn't know how to do life. We wouldn't know how to behave. We wouldn't know all those unconscious things that our bodies do. We wouldn't know how to do all those things. And so I see this very strongly with my adopted clients who, if they come from biological parents that might have had some kind of a drug addiction, my clients usually also develop some kind of an addiction. It might not be the same one, but it usually is also an addiction because the morphic field kind of causes us to follow our family of origin. So this work works even when we just do work on you because you're connected to everybody else through this electromagnetic field. Does that make sense so far?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And I like that because I feel that I really believe in a model of personal responsibility. So regardless of the family that you're born into, and regardless of the things that happen to your mother's mother or whatever, there comes a point in our lives where we have to take responsibility for who we are and who we are being and healing ourselves. And so I feel like that fits into that mold where, other people don't have to be cooperative in order for you to feel like you're healing these wounds.
Exactly.
So, okay. Right. So it is a little bit magic, but also I think of, it's sort of like that feeling like no matter how long you've been away from, say, your parents, when you get back into the room with them again, you have a tendency to act the same way that you've always acted. And, it's like, I feel like no matter how much work I do outside of that, I come in and my tendency is to be who I was when I was a kid with my parents. And so I feel like it's like this magnetic pull to the family. Does that make sense?
Yes. I love that you brought this up because many people come to me saying, but I've done all the hypnotherapy and I've done all the talk therapy and I've done all the this and that. And they feel like they've tried to fix all their problems that really come from their childhood and their family system, when those problems are, significant money issues, significant relationship issues, significant self-esteem issues, like all those persistent, pesky things that we try to meditate away and they just don't go away, usually they come from the family system. And the reason why that is because we have that deep, 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 unshakable bond that can never be broken. Even if we try, even if we reject our family, even if we move away, even if we try to break all of our patterns that we inherited from them, it's really, really, really hard to do. Because without your family, there's a felt sense that you wouldn't be able to survive. So your family are the people who gave you the gift of life, or through them you received the gift of life. And that is the greatest gift anybody could have given you. And in a way, you will forever feel indebted to your parents for that. Because without your parents, you simply wouldn't be here. Even more so, you're half your mom, half your dad. So a lot of who you are is actually your parents. So you're kind of standing on the shoulders of all of your ancestors. So of course you're going to want to belong. Of course you're going to want to follow their behavior. Of course you're going to, want to make them proud, even if you might not be fully conscious of that. So this especially shows in people who try to consciously reject their families, but then end up following them even more. And this is so unconscious. This is where it goes back to the biology of human beings. Without our parents, we won't be able to survive. So that bond that you just mentioned, where somebody goes back into the role that they've always had within the family system, it's just how it works, because you belonging to your family is the most important thing in your life. Like, it's the number one need. There's not a single greater need than that, because without your family, you simply wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's a really good description of that. So we're going to get into the healing piece in a moment. But before we did that, I thought it would be interesting, especially since you work with so many, strong, powerful women on this kind of thing. What are some of the common issues that you see come up in women?
So one thing that's so fascinating, and I talked about this with my mentor because she sees the same pattern. So a very strong pattern that I'm seeing is that many women who are very strong and oftentimes very spiritual, there seems to be a pattern where many of those women tend to reject a parent, especially their mom. And it's so common, and it's one of the most destructive dynamics that we found as family constellation therapists. And before people get a little bit mad at me, because some of the things that family constellation therapists talk about can be a little bit controversial, because it really isn't based on the cultures that we grew up in. It's more based on what we observed helps family systems thrive. So something that we say in family constellation therapy is that you can't have a high sense of self-esteem and reject your mother at the same time. And yet, so many people read books about self-esteem and work on their self-love and, really try, in all honesty, to resolve that for themselves if that's what they're struggling with. And when I see somebody try to do that, but they also reject their mom, it will never really work, because when you reject your mom, you also reject at least half of yourself. So when you tell your mom you suck, you also say that all those parts of you that you got from mom also suck. So it's basically this forever push and pull that is really hard to resolve when you're not willing to go to the root cause, which is your relationship to your mom. So many of us who are spiritual and strong and take responsibility for our lives, and that's awesome. And I also found that we oftentimes kind of run away from the parts that are really painful, which is our relationship to our family.
And you know what? That just makes so much sense. Like when you reject and you say, I don't want any of you, then you're rejecting part of who you are and where you came from. That's so fascinating to me. And I mean, in your work, have you figured out why that's such a common pattern?
There are many reasons, and every single person and family system is so unique. So there are many reasons as to why people reject their moms. It could be something like having been born premature and having been in a little incubator for a little while, and then just having felt like it's not safe to be touched. So that's something that comes up with children who are premature a lot, where mom wasn't able to touch them. They didn't receive that soothing that they really needed after having been born. There's this very severe break in the bond. And so then when they're reunited with mom, there's this felt sense that mom can't be trusted. There's always kind of this gap between them and mom, and it's really hard to bridge that gap. It's not impossible to do. And, it can even be done when somebody's later in their lives. It's something that can definitely be repaired. But without, that's something that's very, very common thing. Sometimes I also have to say, sometimes I get clients who, to be honest, don't really have a good reason for rejecting their mom. Maybe their mom did something that they didn't necessarily prefer, or their mom didn't give them money, or their mom didn't do something, and they're just blaming and not taking responsibility. That's something that shows up as well. And in that case, it's a little bit, I just sometimes have to give my clients a really good talking to, because the price of rejecting a parent is really, really high.
Yeah.
It's so high. And some people reject a parent because they think it'll bring them protection, which usually never works. Some people, try to bring something to justice. For example, if mom cheated on dad, the client will reject mom in order to side with dad and kind of fix the relationship between the parents, but that just brings a whole other array of issues because that's just not the place of the child trying to fix the parents' relationship. But in that case, like there's a little bit of a better, quote unquote, better reason to do it, or out of protection if mom was abusive, to then reject her. But yeah, there's also a lot of rejection that's just not necessary.
Yeah. So that's so fascinating to me. So how does one begin? I mean, like, it feels like this gargantuan task, but how does one begin to heal these family issues with you or on their own? I mean, is there a way that we can do it on our own?
Oh, that's such a good question. And I love that you called it a gargantuan task because I hear that a lot where people come to me, at the very beginning and they're like, oh, Hannah, oh my God, I'm so afraid to even tell you about my family because it feels like I'm opening this big can of worms. And, there was murder here and neglect here and missing people there and my uncle's in jail. And, some people's family systems, like, it does take some time to clean it up. And other people's family systems aren't so bad. But I've never seen a family system that couldn't use some healing. But yeah, for any of you guys listening who are just listening to this and feeling intimidated, there is a path to heal it, and no family system needs to be perfect. It's just about starting. And, especially what we want to do is we want to go to the places that hurt the most, because that's usually where we can find the greatest sense of relief once it's been disentangled. So to answer your question, how to do this and whether one could do this by themselves. So as a representative of family constellation therapy, I have to say that traditionally this work is done in workshops where you would meet in person with a group of people and do this work in person. I personally do it in a one-on-one setting only. So with my clients, who are all over the world, by the way, I'm in London, UK, and my clients are in China and Australia and Brazil and United States and, all over the place. So we can't meet in person. In that case, we do it over the phone, which works as well. It's not the traditional route, but it works especially well for people who have experienced a lot of trauma or have some topics that they want to talk about that they might not feel so comfortable bringing up in a group. So it can be done in a workshop setting. It can be done in a private session with a family constellation therapist. And then I also have an online course where I guide people through the entire family constellation therapy methodology from A to Z that resolves the biggest family patterns. The only thing I don't talk about is war trauma and incest, because those things are so sticky that we need to do this in a one-on-one setting. But yeah, it's also really possible to do that on your own.
And so where would one begin? I mean, you said you usually go to the places that hurt the most. I would imagine that even that for some people is difficult. So how do you feel safe enough to go look at that?
Yeah. So I find that at some point, people's family systems tend to tap people on the shoulder. It's kind of like this nudge of, we really need some healing. Can you please go do this? So it happened with me where I did so much self-work for so long and I was still depressed, still had crazy money patterns, even though I've read all the books and I've done all the coaching and I've really tried. And I had all this unresolved family stuff. And at some point, my own embarrassment and shame and, just the belief that it can never be fixed, like just the need to receive healing kind of overrode that. And I met my mentor, the person who's now my mentor, Natalie Berthold. She lives in Brooklyn in the United States. I met her, and she just talked about family systems, and there was just this deep sense inside of me, like, I'm just done trying to push a boulder uphill. Like, I know there's stuff in my family system that needs to be resolved. I'm just gonna get over myself and try this. So, and I notice that the same happens with most of the people who come to me, where it just feels like their family system taps them on the shoulder and says, enough is enough, we need to resolve this. And then the other thing that I love that one can lean on is it's a fully tested methodology that, I've worked with close to 1,000 people now, and my mentors and all the other people who developed this methodology, they've also worked with so many people, and there's so much research about it. It's a complete methodology, and if it worked on others, it'll work on you too. There's no family system that cannot, be healed so that you feel good again.
Mm-hmm. And what I hear you saying really is that your inner voice urged you to do this. I mean, that's what this podcast is about. That's what I do, is I help women listen to their inner voice. And what is always true is that your inner voice will start softly and get louder and louder and louder. And when we're not in alignment with that, what our inner voice is asking us to do, we feel it. We feel it in our soul. We can feel it in our bodies. It can come up as physical symptoms. We feel it in our spirits. And I just think it's conversations like the one that we're having now, I think that can help people understand what they're feeling. So as all of you are listening to this, if you're feeling like, wow, that's me, like this is the work that I need, I just want to ask you to honor that, to honor the nudge, as you say, that's coming up, because it's there for a reason. So if we were to start, if just say someone's getting that nudge and they're really wanting to think about how this type of work could help them, would you recommend that they start journaling? Would you recommend that they start talking with their family? I mean, how would we even begin to dive in? Because I imagine even as you're working with a coach like you or a therapist like you, that there are certain work or sort of steps that we have to go through in order to dig down into the wounds that need to be healed.
Yeah. So family constellation therapy, so what we basically do in a family constellation therapy session is we set up the morphic field of your family system, and then we work within that field. So it's not just that we work with you as an individual, but we work with any family members that we basically bring into the space. So it is... so sometimes we'll do that through visualizations. Sometimes we'll do that through doing, I have my clients place papers on the floor, and different papers represent different family members, and I'll explain what's out of balance in their family system, and we rearrange things. It's kind of like when you're in a room and all the furniture is completely jumbled and you can't even get from one place to the other. That's what many people's family systems look like. So we kind of go into that cluttered room and we clear it all up so fresh air can flow through, so there's space for everything, and, the pets can feel happy again. So some of the family constellation therapy work is learning, what does a healthy family system even look like? The other thing is that we do hands-on healings. And then some of it is also that I give my clients home play to do in the real world. So interacting differently with their parents, or just some guidance on how to interact with certain family members in a way that's biologically appropriate. But really the core of family constellation therapy is done in the healing work. And I could even guide you through a little bit of an example if, the listeners
I would love
like
that.
to know.
That would be great. I think I'm super interested to know.
Perfect. Yeah, because it's easy. It's difficult to explain. So I guess it's a little bit easier to just show everyone what their family system looks like. All right. So if you are driving, please don't close your eyes. But for those of you who have a quiet moment and who can close your eyes, please go ahead and do so. And as soon as your eyes are closed, start to picture a room. Any room that comes to mind is perfect. And then picture yourself walking into the room. Find a place to stand. Just wherever you feel you want to stand is fine. And then see your mom walk into the room. Have her find a place to stand, and your dad walks into the room as well. So if you were adopted, We would also bring in your adoptive parents and so on, but just for now, do it with your biological parents. And if you've never met them, just picture any kind of person who you think might represent them. So it doesn't have to be perfect. We're just going to be doing this with your biological parents for now, just to keep it simple. And then also allow any siblings to walk into the room who have the same mom and dad as you. So in this day and age, it's so awesome that there's so many patchwork families and alternative ways of being, in a family, and it's so interesting. But just for the sake of time and simplicity, we're just going to be keeping it very short. So only your siblings who have the same mom and dad for now. So allow everybody to find a place to stand. And then have a look around the room, see where everyone's standing. And just take a mental snapshot. You might already get some insights into what this might mean. You might already feel a certain atmosphere in the room. All right. And then look around the room and identify the part of the room that represents the future. This can be an open wall, a door, a window. Just kind of turn in that direction. And if you're not already standing in the center of the room, walk into the center and stand in a way that you're facing into the future. Perfect. So now I'm going to show you what your family system ideally would look like. So have your mom walk up to you and have her stand behind your left shoulder. And then take a moment to shuffle back and forth and find the right space between you and her. And so usually you know that you found the right space when, the right distance, when your body relaxes, when there's a sense of rightness. And it might be a little bit further apart, it might be a little bit closer together. Just kind of take the guidance of your body and see what feels right. So now I know that many of you listening may have experienced some trauma with mom, or maybe she's somebody who's not necessarily safe to be around. So the cool thing about family constellation therapy is that we can also work with people who you might not be in contact with I'm just going to call it the real world. Or maybe your mom is someone who's really abusive, so it's not necessarily safe to be in the same room with her. So regardless of what's going on with your mom, if it feels like this doesn't feel safe, imagine drawing a red circle around your mom on the floor. So we're just creating a little bit of a boundary so you feel more protected and so that it feels okay to have your mom behind your left shoulder. Some of you might not need this, but for those of you who feel better with a boundary, please make sure to do that. And then allow your dad to walk up to you, and he's going to stand behind your right shoulder next to your mom. And we're going to do the same thing. Shuffle back and forth. You can move him back or a little bit closer until you have that click, until it feels right. And then optional, place a boundary around him. So now you should have your parents behind you, and it should feel fairly okay. It might feel uncomfortable because you might have been standing in the wrong way, out of order for quite some time. But it should feel okay. It shouldn't feel threatening. All right. And then place your older siblings to your left and your younger siblings to your right. So you're standing in one line. And now we're going to ask your older siblings to take just a teeny tiny step forward. So they're a little bit further away from your parents, and it's like they're paving the way for you. So they're the older ones, they're the bigger ones, they pave the way. And then your younger siblings, have them take a tiny step back towards your parents. So it's like we're creating a diagonal with your siblings. You're still in one line, but it's a little bit diagonal. And your younger siblings get to be a little bit closer to your parents because they're still a little bit younger. All right. Take a deep breath and feel what this feels like. This is ideally what your family system would look like, where everybody's in the right role for them. You know, the strongest role for your mom is in the role of mom, even if she hasn't necessarily been behaving that way. The strongest role for you is in that birth order that you were born into. Strongest role for your dad is your dad. And when everyone's in the right role, there is no interference. Everybody can thrive in the best way. Perfect. And maybe you can even lean back into your parents a little bit and just feel their support, feel that life force energy. And so if you've had a break in the bond with mom or dad, or maybe even both, you might have missed out on some of that dad and mom support and love that you really, really need. So soak it up a little bit. And we could just keep on going here with healings until the cows come home, but I'm just going to have you gently blink your eyes open again.
Hanna, that was so beautiful. And first of all, thank you for doing that. That was completely unexpected. So I really appreciate that. And for me, it was such an interesting feeling because my parents divorced when I was 2. And so I'm the only, child from both of them. And then they both remarried when I was 3, and I have siblings and step parents and lots of different things. And so it is, for me in my life, I've never experienced just the two of them and me in the same room that I can remember. I mean, I have experienced that, but not in my memory have I ever experienced that. And so that was just really, really interesting. Really interesting.
Thanks for sharing that, Kelly. That's probably also really good for you, to just get some mom and dad time on your own.
Yeah. And, it's funny because when they came into the room where I was, I thought, oh no, because they don't get along. They're not friendly. And, my instinct is always I have to keep them away from each other, which means I can't be with them together. And so just doing that, I can see how powerful that was. And for me, it felt very comforting in a way that I would never feel with them in the actual same room because I would be worried about lots of other things. The dynamics and how I have to manage that. Like that's always, where I go. It's like, oh, I have to manage all of the things because I'm in the middle. I feel like there's just such power in that. And wow, I am just so grateful for you sharing that. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome, Kelly. And what came up in your example is something that I think is so important to know, is that the relationship between the parents should come before the child. This is another one of those very controversial statements in family constellation therapy, but you probably experienced that you needed to grow up a little bit too quickly and try to mediate your parents when that wasn't necessarily the right role for you. And ideally, your parents would be a team and figure out any disputes between them on their own. So, you as the child wouldn't have to step in. So for any of you guys listening who have children, what your children most want and need is to know that the relationship between their parents is good. It's like when mom and dad say, everything is fine, we're in charge, you get to just be the child. That's when the child relaxes and is really able to go through its developmental stages in the most optimal way.
Well, and I'm sure that is helpful. Like if anyone who's listening who has been through a divorce, even as divorced parents, you still have a relationship. And I think that just speaks to how we can be responsible inside of that relationship for our kids. And so there's so much to learn in that room. I feel like in that room, just with me and my mom and my dad, I feel like there's so much to learn and to be seen. So, wow, I am blown away. Like that was, you totally made my day with that. Thank you so much. So Hanna, we're coming up on time here, and I feel like, gosh, now I have so many more questions. So maybe I will have to have you on again sometime. But for our listeners who are interested in going deeper into this kind of work, how can they find you and learn more about what you do and connect with you?
Yeah, so my website is hannabier.com, which is HANNABIER.com. And you're welcome to email me. You're welcome to sign up for a free call with me. I know that sometimes it helps to just talk to somebody about your situation so that they can diagnose you a little bit. I really love doing that. So if you listen to today's call and you're like, I'm not sure what I need, I'm not sure if I need any support at all, I highly recommend just booking a call with me. I'm always happy to just chat and, help you figure out what type of support is best for you. So the best way to get started is to just go on over to my website. I'm also on Instagram at Hanna Free Spirited, so you're also welcome to connect with me there.
Mm-hmm. And we'll have links to all of that in the show notes and in the podcast app that you are listening with, so you can find all of that right there and click through to connect with Hanna. So Hanna, I ask all of my listeners at the end of each interview my favorite question, and that is, in your life right now, what is your inner voice saying to you?
My inner voice is just so joyful because it was all worth it. We didn't talk much about my personal story today or at all, but I've had a really, really, really rough life. And a lot of that has given me the depth and the strength and the wisdom to now be able to do the work that I do. And I'm so grateful for that. So my inner voice just is currently very much reminding me that it was all worth it for the honor of getting to help people today. And that just brings me so much joy.
Yeah, I just love that. And I can feel your joy all the way from London here in Syracuse, New York. And I just want to say thank you for being here, for sharing your deep wisdom, and for opening our eyes to a new way that we can step into more in our lives. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Kelly.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. I thought it was so fascinating. And if you want to learn more about Hanna and what she does, you can check out her links that I will have in the show notes. And also, I know that she is releasing a new book coming out this spring. I don't have an exact date, but definitely follow her on Instagram and really stay in touch with her, because I think it's going to be really, really great. Always remember, you matter. You are important. We need you showing up as you in this world, not as anybody else, as you, because you are worthy.